Welcome to How to Access Telemetry Data from AL Code. Hey, I'm Eric, and I'm working on a project for myself. Well, for Hogart.com, which is the app company I have together with my wife, and I just mentioned everybody involved in the project. So we need a smart solution to help us do things because we're just us. And so we need automation, we need things integrated and so on. So I'm working on the big plan, and the big plan is to have a business central that ties everything in, and there's automation running whenever something needs to be done, so we can make things work. And from that, we need to connect to App Source and get leads and downloads and all that stuff. Information we can get there. We need to connect to our web shop, which is running WooCommerce on WordPress, and we also need to connect to telemetry in order to know when registration keys has been used and if errors occurs, and telemetry to know what's happening with our software and that it's performing as it should. Then there's also the one above me, which is whenever something that we need to send an email, we're using something called MoveSend to do email sending. So all this needs to be integrated and just be a very automated place. That's the big plan. But in order for the big plan to succeed, there are some technical hurdles, and the technical hurdle I want to tackle today is how can I get telemetry into AL, there's actually web services for that. So I thought, why don't you guys come along and let's see if we can get some telemetry data into BC. So let me see if I can find a web browser. So here's a application insight thing, and well, the first thing we need to figure out is, of course, what data do we want, and in this case, I've created a query. I'll look at traces. That's from within the last 3 days. Maybe let's see if we can just do 1 day. There's still plenty of data. And then I use the project command to tell what columns I want, and I think we'll get back to that in I think you can actually name them nicely. I think I can do equal event. Let's see. Then no, I can't. I don't know. There's a way to do this. What do I do as? No, let me know if you know. I know this. I have it somewhere. Anyway, we just get weird columns named, but that's okay. So in this case, I've grabbed the event ID, I grabbed the company name, and I grabbed the message. Just let's see if we can get this into Business Central. And there's great documentation. So let's see if we can make this big enough so that it's viewable for you guys. So we can actually access the query. We can get a query. And it's a get, and there's a fairly simple URL. We need to tell about the app ID, and then we have a query. And if we look down here, it says security OAuth 2. But as far as I understand, we don't really need to do that because there's also what is known as an API key. Anyway, let's. I prepared a app here, so let's get into this telemetry code. Wow, code unit. Yeah, that's a good number for a code unit. Telemetry query thing. So let's do a query. Create a function called query, and perhaps we. Oh, wow, that did not go well. Let's call that run query, so we get a nicer coloring here. So whenever we need to talk to web service, we need an instance of the HTTP client, and I prefer to create a request, so HTTP request message, and I get a response. Wow, response, HTTP response message. So somewhere, you know, in the business end of all this, we'll have a if client dot send request, and we get response. And that was clearly very bad typing on the response. Then begin. And if this fails, we are in deep trouble. So in here, and if we get response dot is successful status code, then no success. And if you've seen me do the same thing in other videos, then that's how I start all these else. We got a lot of errors. So we can get from the response, we can get the status code. We actually, and here's the instance, even though it might fail, you can still have response dot content. So on an error message, you might actually get content out of the response, even if it's fail. So you get the actual error message. Like if you get a 500 or something like that, you might get a useful error message. But now we can build a request. So we can do request dot method, and I forgot, it's a get. How easy is that? Request dot set the URI, and we need to do maybe we should actually, I'm just looking at this and see. So what is a, so in this case we pass the thing. So I might actually prefer to, there's one called execute. And that's a post. I think we might be better off with a post here. So the query string, and the reason I'm saying this is because we can also pass the query in the get, but then we get into encoding and special characters and stuff like that. So to avoid that, that's easier to post the query. So I think we're gonna do this. So we need an app ID clearly. What is the app ID? Well, let's go back to this thing. So let's actually just grab the thing we had here and put it in, because I think this is what we need to do at some point. So now we have that. If I go back to my overview, no, let's actually go down to API access. Here is our application ID. I'll copy that, and I'll put it in here. Of course, this should sit in a setup somewhere, but for this video it's fine. And then I can create an API key. YouTube, read telemetry, generate key. So I get a key. So we copy that. So we got a key now, but I don't think. So this one also says OAuth, but I am very, very convinced that I can do the following. So let's see here. Let me show you. So whenever you're sending an HTTP request of any type, there's two things that's happening. You send headers, which is a weird name, but think about this as additional parameters. You send those, and when you get the result back, you also get headers back, so parameters. And in order to do this, we can do headers, and then we create a HTTP headers instance. And this is kind of weird. So now we can do this new request. We will not. You cannot set so you think, okay, I have a headers and I put values into that, and then I set it. But you can only get it. And so now we get headers, and headers are now a pointer. So this variable holds the headers of this request. So we never need to set it. So now that we can go here, and then we can say headers.add, and I am pretty convinced there is a header called x-api-key, which we can take the thing here and pass. Oops. Let's see if we can make this more logical. But now this key is added into the request, because this one is just a pointer to the headers that are sitting in a request. It's kind of weird and not very business central AL-ish, but that's the way it works. Okay, so now we need to have a query. So we got a query here. Let's see if we can get to the query. We got the query here. So we need to put the query into something called the content. So there's another variable called HTTP content. And by now we created 5 variables, one of each type of the HTTP requests. So we're getting around. So now we can say content, and here we do a write from. Don't ask. We're friends. So there is a video called In, Out, Read, Write, Confusing Directions on a channel that will explain why something is write and something is read when it doesn't really make any sense. And write to and read from and write from, and yeah. Go check that one out after this one. So now we can put in a request, and we need to, let's go back to this one and just look at what is the body. The body is, I think that's probably an example. Here we go. You see the body is actually just JSON. We don't need the time span. The time span is optional. Only query is needed. So we could, maybe we should. So request JSON is a JSON object, and then let's do request JSON.add, and let's look at this one again. We need a one called query, which should then have, let me just grab the one we had here. Oh, like this. And then I think we can just do format request JSON. But so remember the header thing. So this is where it gets even weirder, because there is a special header. So some headers And this is something that AL gets from .NET, which is kind of weird. But .NET at some point, ancient time, decided to classify headers in what they relate to. And some headers belong to the request and some headers belong to the content. So there is already a header here called content type, which is not set at JSON. So what we need to do now is we need to do content and get, and I'm just going to reuse the variable, which is kind of not a great thing to do, but it also proves a point that now headers points to the headers on the content. It no longer points to the headers of the request. You follow? So with this, the first thing we need to do, because there's already a header called content type, so we actually need to remove that. So it's called content dash, I think capital T type. So now it's gone. So now we can go and say headers dot add content type, and then set the content type to application/JSON. So we need to tell the server at the other end that what we have in the body is JSON, because otherwise they will not take it. So I think this might work. Let's add a breakpoint, and then I think I prepared something on the item list. So we can just go and create a quick action here called telemetry, caption equal telemetry, application area equal all, trigger on action, var t code unit telemetry query thing, and we'll do a t.run query here. I think that should work. Let's hit a 5. If it blows up, we will debug. Well, I think actually we were going to debug anyway. So let's see. Getting ready. And we are on the item list, so there should be something called telemetry. And we got a breakpoint. So method post. We set the query to the URI to this one. Now we get headers, so now we can expect headers if we want to. Maybe we can. I don't know if the debugger understands that. Let's see. Headers. Nothing. Now we're adding headers. We can go, let's see if there's something now. Nothing. So headers is not debuggable. That's kind of annoying. Anyway, we create a JSON request. We get that query equal all those things. Content, let's see if we can see what is in content. We can't, so we'll just have to hope. We'll get some more headers here. Still useless. We will remove this one. We'll add it again, and now we will send. And you notice that I hit F10, and then I got the as if we're in a break, but we're still on the same line. So what typical happens is that over here, because it's on the send, this first time we talk with web service from this app. So now we need to allow this thing to do its thing. And now we get back and we get a response. I think we're in log. We got a 200. So this is a successful response. We got a success. And here we can see headers. We can see all the headers that came back. This is kind of weird. Maybe we can also, if we do this, no, we can't see headers here. Anyway, so let's, okay, so we got it. We got a success. Okay, so let's go back to the documentation for an instant and see what do we get. Well, we get a JSON structure called tables, and within each tables there is a name and what columns are in it and the rows. So we can see that we got 2 columns here, and then we get rows which is an array with array in them. So those are just plain values without anything else. Okay, so let's here, instead of our, well, we like our success, right? So let's create a response. Wow. Okay, my keyboard is clearly very defective, otherwise I would type perfectly. Response txt, you need a text. Response JSON, that's a JSON. So what are we getting? We're getting an object first, right? Curly, so JSON object. So we can go here and then let's say that response dot content, we'll just get that, and then dot, we can do read the content into the prior text. So we'll do that. So we read what we have into response txt. Then we can do response, not request JSON, but response JSON dot read again, and we'll read from response txt. So now we should have a JSON object of what we need. And we can see that inside this one, there's an array called tables. So let's create a column called tables, and that's a JSON array. And whenever we're dealing with getting stuff in and out of JSON objects, we end up needing a JSON token. So I'll just create one of those. And so we should be able to do something like response JSON.get tables comma t, because we're always getting a token. And now we could, this one will return a boolean, but let's just have it fail spectacular if it doesn't work. So now we could do tables equal t as, and what was that? Tables is an array, right? Did I do that up here? Yeah, I did. Wow. As array. And then I guess let's just do first table here, because so what we're dealing with is that this JSON structure will change how its layout depending on the query, right? So you could potentially have a complicated query that returns more than a single table, and so this is kind of built for that case. But a table is an object, so we will do JSON object as the first table. So here's another weird thing. So now I can do tables dot get, and we all know that AL is a one index based language, apart from a few places like get on a JSON array, because then the first row is 0. So that specific function is 0 indexed. And I'm just going to use t again, because now I'm done with this. I'm going to reuse t here again. So now I can do first table equal t as object. So we get the tables, we get the first entry in the tables, and we assign that to the first table. And what do we have here? Well, we have name, columns, and rows. So let's create another variable. table rows, that's a JSON array, so we can anticipate that we will get a row in a second, which remember was also an array actually. So we will do a first table.get, and what was the name? It was rows. And then we'll do, just reuse t again, and then we'll do, what did we call it? Table rows. Table rows equal t as array. And now we can do table rows.get, and remember 0 indexed again, and then we'll just do row. Actually, we'll do t, and then we'll do row equal t as array. Typically, I end up creating a small functions, and then let's just end here by doing format row. Let's see how this goes. Do we still have a breakpoint here? Let's move the breakpoint down to this guy. So all the manipulation we did here, let's just see if any of this works. I'll hit a 5. And come on, BZ, telemetry. See if we get our breakpoint. We do. Well, let's find the right one. This guy. Okay. We got a response. We got empty. So we did not get anything useful here. That's interesting. Let's see if we did something wrong anywhere. So now it returns nothing, which is interesting. So we do log in, so we get a response, so that is happy. Anything wrong with our query? I don't think so. Let's see if we can figure that out. I have a cheat sheet on a different screen, so if there's something that I completely missed, I will just check this for a second. I know what's, and have you guys yelled at the screen for a while? You should have, because we created the content, we did all the header stuff, but what we didn't do was add the content we just created to the request. Right. So that was a pretty big miss. So we created the content and I was all good, and I yapped along about headers and stuff, and then I never got around to add it to the request. Let's try that again, shall we? This is live TV. That's what's happening. I hope you guys spent the time writing angry comments down below, stuff like that. Right after you subscribed, of course. Let's try again. Telemetry. Let's see. I think we got our breakpoint. This is exciting. We'll do an F10. Bingo. There's data. I see stuff. Okay, so we got response text. Now we create response JSON. So we got a JSON object with all this good stuff. We get tables into T. Then we get an object called tables. This is still good. We get the very first one into T. And we put that into the first table. So we have a table here. Then we get table rows. This looks like rows. and we get a row which is RT0008, null web service called, and a that's just the thing. So I think we can just do F5, and we got RT0008. And if we go back to our, let's grab our query here and go back to, oh, I already had it here. How did that happen? Here we go. I guess this is the line we get first. Interesting. So we can get telemetry into BC. There's a bit of JSON gymnastics. Gymnastic. I don't know how to say gymnastic with a J. But I think this is doable. This seems to be fairly cool. And now we a proof of concepts. Now we stuff needs to go into setup, and maybe this needs to be turned into a table of some sort, a BC table. But I think it's very doable to get telemetry information into your BC. So I have a very special use case for this, because I'm actually not getting telemetry from the BC that I'm running this in. I'm getting telemetry from app source, but that shouldn't matter. Telemetry is telemetry, so you should be able to, using this method, to get it where you want. So thanks for watching, and how about checking out this video filled with AL programming? I promise. I'll see you there. Take care. Bye.